Now, inside what we need to do is we need first the collection reference. So just like we got it before, I'm going to say collection reference is equal to collection, passing it the DB, but also the aforementioned collection key. Here, though, we know exactly what the collection key is. It's the categories key because we just made this collection. Then what we want to do next is a little bit more complicated and convoluted, honestly, but unique to Firestore. What we need is we need to generate a query, and from that query, we need to get docs. So we need to import two new methods from Firestore, query and get docs. After I write this, I'm going to explain a little bit about why we set up our code this way, primarily to guard against Firestore. And this is often not even unique to Firestore, but front-end development as a whole typically falls under this trap, or you could argue JavaScript development as a whole falls under this trap. But what we need to do with the query is we need to say, hey, I'm going to generate a query off of this collection ref. So I'm going to use the query method by passing in the collection ref. This gives me some object now that I can get a snapshot from. So I'm going to say query snapshot is equal to await of calling getDocs on queue. So getDocs here is the asynchronous ability to fetch those document snapshots that we want. Because now it's all encapsulated under this query snapshot. From here, we're actually able to access the different document snapshots off of query snapshot.docs. This will give us an array of all of those individual documents inside, and the snapshots are the actual data themselves, as we've seen before when we use snapshots. But here what we want to do is we want to reduce over this to create this structure we've been discussing. So here I'm going to say const category map, which is what we're trying to build, is equal to query snapshot.docs.reduce. So we're reducing over this array in order to finally end up with an object. So here for the actual structure of my reduce, my first argument, of course, is the callback that gets invoked on each document snapshot. And then this is the final object we want to create, but this is the initial instance of it, which is an empty object because we're building out the map as we go. The first argument is going to be accumulator. The second argument is going to be doc snapshot. And then from here, what we're going to do is we are going to first need to destructure off the values of the data of this doc snapshot. So I want the title and I want the items. And I'm going to say, hey, take this doc snapshot, give me the data, which will be the object, and then take off the title and the items. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the accumulator at the title value is also needs to be lowercase. If we remember, our title is actually, as I mentioned, uppercased. This value is going to be equal to the items. And then I return my accumulator now that it's been updated. So now what this will be is the actual category map that we've been building out. And I'm just going to return this as is. So if you're looking at this and you're like, wow, what are these queries? This get docs, this is async, and then we need to reduce over, and yet somehow here on the docs, we get like these document snapshots. I know this seems confusing, and quite frankly, it's changed every single instance major version of Firebase. It's actually one of the more annoying things about how Google builds out Firestore is they do make it backwards compatible. You can use the previous versions, if you've taken this course before, of how you build out these different data models, fetch this data, store this data. But here, the main thing that I want to highlight what we're doing is we are creating these helper functions. And the main thing they do is they isolate the areas that our application interfaces with things that might change. In this particular case, it's third-party libraries. The third-party library might change their implementation, but at least we're isolating them all into these individual functions rather than directly using these Firestore and authentication methods throughout our application. Because if we did that, then let's say Firebase or Firestore changes the way they work. Then across our entire application, we need to change all of those different places. Whereas now we've at least isolated them all into this one file, into these individual functions that are clearly defined as to what these functions are trying to do. For example, with this one, we're trying to get our category map here. If they change the implementation here, we just need to change this one function. Anywhere that's utilizing the category map is still just going to rely on this one function. So as long as we fix the function, then we know that as long as we're returning category map, our code is still going to behave throughout the rest of our application the way we need it to. And that's why we structure our code this way. So this is one important thing you need to remember, because unfortunately, the world of JavaScript development moves very quickly. Libraries are constantly changing, patterns are constantly changing, frameworks are constantly changing. We need to figure out these patterns so that we can at least best isolate and minimize the impact that these changes have on our code base from working. And this is one of them. So now that we've generated our category map, let's actually see if it is indeed working. I'm going to copy this method that we just made, and I'm going to move it into our product context. So here now, I'm going to replace this add with our get categories documents. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to call use effect. Now, use effect is going to simply just call our get categories. But one thing I want you to know, and this is a new thing we're doing with use effect here. This method is an async method, which means we get back a promise. So the promise of this value doesn't resolve until our await of get docs is complete. And then it still have to run through all of this to build the category map. When you're using an async function inside of use effect, you don't want to pass a async callback like this. You want to, inside of your anonymous callback, actually create a new async function. So here I'm going to say const get categories map is equal to an async function. And inside of this async function, we're going to actually perform the async call. So here, again, const category map is what we get back, is equal to our await call of get categories and documents. Any async things you need to do inside of a use effect, wrap it in an async function. And then what you need to do is then you call this method at the bottom. So to show you, I'm just going to console log the map. And then after we've defined it, I'm going to invoke it. And of course, I only want to run this when this provider gets mounted. So if I save this, I go back to our application. What we'll see after it fetches is here we go. This is our categories map. We have an object that contains our hats and our jackets and our men's and our sneakers and our women's. This is exactly what we wanted. And now we have all of the data we need to actually finish fleshing out our shop. But again, the main things that we've learned here are two new lessons. One, we got a better understanding of why we set up all these utility functions, because we want to minimize the impact that changing third-party libraries have on our code base. And secondly, we also learned about using async functions inside of use effect. We want to make our own new async function within the callback. And then what we want to do is we want to call it inside of the same callback after it's been initialized. So now that we have this working category map, we need to actually change up the structure of what we called this provider, as well as make some new components. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. I'll see you there.